grateful that you kept going.
We decided to talk about climate change instead. Is that all right?
Oh, well, that's nice.
Yes.
It's a lot to say about that. No, keep going. I don't want to interrupt.
No, I was going, no, force me. Like literally like hit me like that. Because to go through the rest of the 9.
All right. Oh, let's go. Oh, yeah, you guys have time running out. So, in other words, this was really interesting for me. Is that who is going to buy your patient-facing documents, which you created so well, like that everybody can read it? That would be really interesting for me. Is that a CRO? Is that a pharmacy firm? Or that sponsors who are interested in doing a really good job in listening to patients?
Yeah, I think the ultimate buyer is the pharmaceutical or biotech company, and this is the issue. So I mentioned in the last webinar that we had about. I spent the last 2-3 years going from conference to conference, and there are two types of slogans, and you can imagine the first one, AI. We do AI, which is the equivalent now of saying we use a laptop to do our work, or we have an internet connection. Everybody's and then putting that on as a slogan on a conference booth. And the second one is we elevate the patient voice, or some such slogan for that. Now, I always measure the sincerity that people have towards the patient voice, like they're really looking after patients in terms of the quality of the materials that they give to the patients. So you find some pharmaceutical companies that really do care, and you find some that don't.
Let me guess, the ones who care are the small ones?
They can be, but there are also big ones who, like in the 2000s, we managed to convince all of the blue chip pharma, the so-called blue chip pharma, the top 20, to improve their patient information leaflets for Europe. Now, what happened there was that it's a question of knowledge management as well, because with restructuring, a lot of people moved their regulatory affairs departments to other areas of the world where there was no knowledge or no concept of this. And I remember two companies in particular that are really that produce household name brands. I won't mention them for legal purposes, but they moved their regulatory departments both to India, and that was really starting from zero with educating them about don't use capitals, don't use text boxes for really important information, like this side effect can kill you in a text box where the human eye just moves right around it. Not good, but it depends on the buy-in from the pharmaceutical company, and ultimately, and not a lot of that interested, to be honest.
Yeah, I get that. It's, I guess, like everywhere, all about the money, and legal is also for them. I understand that too, because I see it also from the doctor nurse perspective. You always have to make sure you are like covering it all, and then they have to use that kind of legal language just to make sure they are not like doing anything wrong. And also the authorities, they are like demanding those languages. I would wish for a summary in easy, like what are you actually signing up for, and then just like easy sentences, short sentences, understandable. So that's what I did with my book. I had a summary at the end, because I think if you can't go to the whole chapter, then at least have a summary. And then also maybe you just want to flick through and see if that is something of interest. But I think this way they would reach a few more people. Which brings me now, we have to get going also. The first question I think we already kind of answered. But what is really interesting for me is the tokenism. How do you make sure that those who do the cognitive debriefing really listen and really do it, instead of just, okay, yeah, we did it, or the sponsors, yeah, we did it, we sent it somewhere and we did it? How do you make sure that doesn't happen?
Well, you know, a small person like me, I'm not talking just about height, but you know, just in terms of importance in the greater scheme of things, can't force companies to do anything, really.
Yeah.
And so we can't avoid tokenism. We have no power about that. But what all we can do is just educate about the sincerity towards the patient, because you could frame it in a cynical way that pharmaceutical companies know that the patient is the client.
Yeah.
You know? So, you know, in terms of patient-facing documents, that is one way to reach the client in countries, which is most countries, where direct-to-consumer advertising isn't allowed. So, you know, I'm not talking about using a patient information leaflet as a means of advertising, but as a means of trust. And that is something that companies would do well to take notice of.
Well, I keep seeing more and more people on LinkedIn, like Keith, for example, who are really speaking up for exactly what we do here. Like, patients need to be heard. Patients need to be patients and not numbers. I had a discussion with him about the word subjects. When they call them subjects, I'm like, oh gosh, I hate that word so much. It's not a thing, you know. It's a person, probably ill, very ill person with lots of emotions, feelings, and fears, and then they call them subjects. Oh gosh, I hate it, really. And if the subjects read that, they will feel like they don't give a shite about me. You know, it's just they want to fill their numbers, they want to recruit patients or participants, but I don't matter to them at all. But I do see more and more posts about that on LinkedIn. I don't know if that is because I'm looking for it or because it's actually really getting a thing.
Yeah, I think there are individuals like Keith who I'm really impressed with. That I could easily see myself working with him. But there are other people just like him. I think you need to look at the trail as well of who is liking whose posts. And then basically you can develop a community of like-minded people. In the information design space, there are hundreds and hundreds of professionals. I've never understood why they've never made that leap over to a clinical phase, because they would just do wonders.
Absolutely.
And they're occupying positions. I mean, these are people who shape cities, you know, in terms of signs and wayfinding and hospitals and airports and that kind of thing. So designing an informed consent form is a joke to them, but these are skills and know-how that's missing in the clinical phase.
Well, I wonder if when I read stuff like from Keith, quite often that subjects drop out of trials because they don't feel heard, and I keep reading that too, and then I wonder, is the pharmaceutical industry not under pressure to make that better, you know, to get more subjects to stay in the trials? So are they actually thinking about why that comes or where that comes from, or is that changing, or is it just a big cloud we wish it would happen?
I think it's a mix of both, but one of the things that we need to remember is that there's no Dr. Evil in a pharmaceutical company stroking a cat and saying, yes, let's produce bad information so that patients can't understand it. It's a question of, again, I mentioned knowledge management before. It's about not knowing that you don't know. They don't know that they don't know that this is a need. It's just a question of educating, really, sustained education.
Yeah.
And I think when you talk about tokenism, then there is a lot of cynical movements, like, for example, cognitive debriefing of clinical outcome assessments. A company could say, tick that box, we sought the patient's voice and we got the fee. Or with the patient information leaflet, where in some regions it is a regulatory requirement to test all of the documents, all of the patient information leaflets. And again, that is patient voice sought, done. We did a very mediocre study and we got mediocre feedback, but that is patient feedback nonetheless. And that's where the tokenism is as well.
Yeah, exactly. I want to share one example. The other day, or like that was last week, I think, I got a questionnaire for, it has been through cognitive debriefing in German. And I was to do the final check. And I read this questionnaire, and this questionnaire was so badly translated. It was like put through Google Translate and nobody watched it. It was inconsistent. It was like the same as you said the other day. I know what you mean, but we don't say it like that. Like every question was like that. So I had the instruction to just change what is really, really necessary, because it went through all the process already. So then I wrote to that PM and I said, this is actually not really usable. I can't believe it was through cognitive debriefing. And then we got into a discussion, a kind discussion, but still, I couldn't believe that. And she's like, yeah, it went through, and the ones, and then I don't have the knowledge about how that process works, but she says the ones who do the cognitive debriefing, they are not allowed to ask if the patient would change anything. So only if the patient actively says, this is not right. But she couldn't ask, would you change how the sentence is written or something like that? Do you say it like that?
It's a standard question in cognitive debriefing.
That's very interesting, because I wondered, I'm like, what for is it then?
Yeah, exactly. But again, so if you have a translation that's been done by AI or Google Translate, and it resembles something in German, right? And just the way that it is broken up, where the individual item is tested, but not the whole document, then you can get full understanding from the patients by saying, in the last 4 weeks, how have you been feeling with this, with, having a cough or whatever, when it was at its worst. And so you break that up and you get them to explain it in their own words, and the explanations in their own words provide the proof of comprehension. So that's how cognitive debriefing, there isn't a pass mark for cognitive debriefing as there is in readability testing, but that's how you will get proof of understanding with cognitive debriefing, by just that, just testing it in isolation.
All right. Okay. Well, that makes more or less sense, but it explains things. But I was shocked. I was like, okay, this is really bad. I would never want my name under this. And I don't know if they changed it. She said she gave all the my comments to the language lead. I never heard again if they like their comments to it, but yeah, anyway. I just want to read that Karin said about the subject thing. It's the same. She posted something about the word you versus the patient. And that's, I totally agree, Karin. It's such a difference if you read a document where it's the patient or it's you. And I think we talked about that last time already. But right, you off. And Eva, the OI party may invite a change in all documents due to the patients being involved from the beginning of the process. It is a long process, but by that time we may see a change in the European field. Could someone of you, or maybe Eva, explain that a little closer, a bit more? Oh. I think she's typing. Yeah, well, maybe we move on for now.
I could say something about that is the spirit behind it is about having patients co-design in patient-facing information from the beginning, and that's what should be happening in clinical outcome assessment development as well. Patients need to be in that process right from the beginning, so then you wouldn't.
What is the party? I don't know that.
It's a patient initiative, isn't it?
No, I never heard about it, but you never learn,
Well, the thing is, since we left Brexit, we just don't know. Since Brexit happened, I mean, we just don't know about all of these advanced European development.
It is a lot on LinkedIn. I have to Google that. I have to follow them. It sounds really interesting. Awesome. Well, let's keep going to the culture, context, and communication. I was saying before that is really interesting for me, and everybody who is here has a different background, and I guess that you have one questionnaire and we all would answer it another way, and we all would maybe sometimes you're offended by things that other people wouldn't even consider. Anything that you would like to, or anybody here would like to say, because that would be really interesting. Like Eva, you would know all about the Swedish distancy, being like not too confronted with things, not being too straight about things. Can you? Well, that's at least how I see the Swedish people. They need it nicely packed, friendly.
I didn't catch you now. What did you say?
I'm talking about the cultures in languages. Like, for example, an American here in Sweden you spot him right away because he's outgoing, he's loud. Like, actually, everybody who's not Swedish. I was in Little the other day, and there was a Spanish family. I knew it was Spanish just because they were so much louder than or more alive, I would say, than the Swedish people. Swedish people are so quiet, don't say anything. And I wonder if that also makes a change in writing patient-facing documentation for you, Eva.
I'm not sure about that all of us are inhibited.
I don't know about all, but
a great mixture among us too, but maybe you haven't seen all of us. Anyhow, it has to do with the culture, I think.
But that's what I mean. That I think I could talk differently to an American person than to a Swedish or a Spanish person, for example.
Mm-hmm.
We are very confident in ourselves, I would say, and we don't have to express ourselves in every moment.
Yeah,
maybe an American has to, because they have to be seen and be confirmed and all these things. I don't need that. I take care of myself, my own business, and we are very much also individualists. We don't have to go together.
True. That's true.
So
Karin would like to add something.
Yes, I think I do not remember the exact example we talked about, but I think maybe Noor or Arletta will recall. But I remember in the linguistic validation course, we once had a discussion about this topic, in which there was an example of a phrase or a term that for an American native speaker would probably be very adaptable for them, but for us, for example, in the Netherlands, it will be very patronizing, or a Dutch person would be easily offended or worse by that phrasing. I don't remember the exact phrasing it was, but it was a bit because in the Netherlands, the majority of the Dutch people would be offended or would get a little irritated about that question, more or less like, well, what Eva just said. I decide what I do, and I am not. I thought it was something about. Do you feel? Or do you think you should stop drinking? Or I don't know. Noor, do you remember what it was? What the question was?
Yeah, it was like, do you consider you should quit drinking? Or
Yeah.
yeah.
Do you know? Do you think you should or you ought to quit drinking? That was yeah. And if you would ask the exact same question to a Dutch person, he would probably be like, "Whoa, you think I should stop drinking?" And then because the American native speaker in our group said, "Well, this would be a perfectly fine question for me and for my fellow Americans." So yeah, I think it's definitely
And how do you deal with that? What do you do then in that case? Tell the client, sorry, but that's not a question for us, or how much?
Well,
yeah,
I think it starts with the translation, with the translation of the sentence. In that phase, we can already think about, okay, how can we translate this item, this question, as conceptually equivalent as possible, but also not to offend our target group. So that's a start. And I think because we also discussed that sometimes we just have to use these questions and just build around it to just keep the conceptual equivalence and get to the fact that your participants will not run away. So, but and I think, as I understood it correctly, Noor, but correct me if I'm wrong, sometimes you cannot change it 100%. You cannot. You just have to do with the question and just build around it, and sometimes you cannot fix the problem that arises. But yeah, if I don't know if I understood this right, but yeah, it is a really important part of our job.
Yeah.
To keep those cultural adaptation and the cultural influence in mind.
And that's also why it is so important that native speakers work on projects like that. I keep seeing more and more job offers where they say even near-native is enough. And even if I'm near-native, I might speak really good that language, but I don't feel it. I don't, you know, I don't have the guts for it.
It's absolutely utmost important, I think, to work with native speakers. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, it makes me think now something that you, Mark, said, that there's no 100% conceptual equivalency. I mean, cultural equivalency. You can get as close to it, but it's really, let's say, an ideal or a myth that you can really achieve that. But to me, there's like a spectrum, and sometimes it's true that if the COA has already been developed, no translatability assessment has been done during the development phase. So in order to precisely avoid these issues or try to see other ways of wording the same concept so that it may be translatable to different cultures, then what we can do is just to try to fix it a bit, or in a spectrum as much as possible. Sometimes we are just going to do a very, very poor job, and because there's just no other choice. And we just have to go ahead with it, or make additions, trying to clarify, or try to just make it less offensive in a way. But these requires also further discussions with the developer, explaining why this is offensive. And the problem that we are seeing now is that sometimes we have projects, but the client, let's say we are working or collaborating with an LSP or a CRO, but that doesn't have access to the developer or the project manager. Even though we say, please contact the developer, we need to have a discussion about this, they haven't gotten the developer involved in the project. So it's really, it results in a very poor linguistic validation. That's what happens. So in a way, one of the aims that we're having with our podcasts, the courses even, is to try to preserve the quality as much as possible, and not to keep dropping in that, as you said, Karin, not knowing really how the process works. Even the very same process of cognitive debriefing, not asking patients if they would word that differently, or provide any suggestions, that just because it's not understanding only. As we said, it's you can understand, maybe you can understand, but what are you interpreting? And then it sounds strange to you. So
I wondered if I was the problem, if I was just too focused on getting it like really right. But then I'm like, no, you can't put that out really seriously. It's just, it's like it had like, it was so literal translated. So something that I would say in English, but not in German. And then also the same, the words were in the wrong place in the sentence. So the words were all there, but it was kind of like a puzzle. Like, okay, I don't get it. But Karin, you raised your hand.
Yeah, because what Noor said just now just reminded me that I wanted to say this before, because you just spoke about your experience with proofreading the final version. I think, well, obviously, I'm just starting with this whole linguistic validation. I'm just rounding up the course, so I'm just starting. I do not have a very large experience with it, but I think it also has to do, because if you what you see happening is that, for instance, my clients, they ask me to do just a little tiny part of the linguistic validation process, for instance, the proofreading, or only the forward translation review, or only the back translation review. And then there are 7 or 8 people, linguists, working on this project. And I think that might be really a problem in some cases like yours, because I also this week I also was asked only to proofread the final version of the really small part of a COA, and but fortunately I could read the CD report, and I could read all the previous steps that were followed by my fellow linguists, and in my case it was a perfectly fine translation, and it was all the rationale was there, but I think that might be a solution if you encounter this problem. If you could just read the CD report, or read the previous reports that linguists might have made, to follow their rationale about some things. Yeah.
Well, thank you. That's really interesting. Actually, that would be interesting to read the CD report there. Yeah, definitely. Wow, what a nice bridge to our last slide. Cognitive debriefing. Now we finally get to talk about it. I mean, we did talk about it already. What else is on the slide? Let me read. Can you walk us through how it, actually, how does it work? How do I imagine, like, I'm new, I did your course, I may know a bit more about cognitive debriefing, and now I have my first task as a cognitive debriefer. How would that work?
Maybe Karin can answer that. Arletta and Eva. Well,
Thank you for throwing me under the bus.
Many years before doing the course already, so maybe Eva can't say that, but Arletta or Karin may share. Maybe you, Arletta, your experience at least with the interviews.
What would you like to know about it?
Sorry.
I don't mind. Who wants to go first?
Eva, go first.
What would you like to know about?
My question is, how does it work? Do you have a webinar or like a telephone conference like this with a patient, and then do you go
from the beginning?
Yeah, please. Like really easy. Like I've never done it.
I'm getting an email from you asking me to do the cognitive debriefing for Swedish.
Yes.
I will find 5 people having the same diagnosis as asked for. I'm usually use Facebook because there you can do everything through Facebook, and you can still be a kind of impersonal. So then you wait.
So you post. I'm looking for 5 patients with this and this disease.
Mm-hmm.
That's a post, and then they come back to you.
It's a lot of groups in Facebook. You can find a group having this type of diagnosis.
All right.
So you ask the administrator to have entrance into the group, and then you can go and ask personally each and every one if you like to be attending this type of process in this type of project. And you have to explain for them to have a response from them in a good way. But that part you learn by time, I think, how you are presenting yourself.
Yeah,
also,
that's part of the recruitment phase.
That's the part of the recruitment, because that's also the first thing they're asking me for. They ask me for recruit 5 people having this and that diagnosis.
Facebook is one, social media, but it's patients associations or clinics, and there are different resources, but sometimes it's not as easy, and it requires like to contact between 20 and 100 different places in order to find patients, depending on the conditions. So
I've tried associations too, but I never got one from associations because they are covered themselves there. They are closed.
It depends on the country as well, and
in Sweden I never succeeded.
Very, very strict in some countries, so it's difficult, and so that would be like the most challenging part, the finding of the patients.
But if you use Facebook, you can easily set up your invitation, and you just copy paste until you get in your 5 people. So it's an easier way than spending time finding associations. And in Sweden, it's almost only one association for a diagnosis. So then if you are not getting any response there, where are you going then?
Well, I guess in Sweden, Facebook is really big. In other parts, like in Germany, nobody uses Facebook anymore. But in Sweden, it's like, it's really that thing. Yeah.
After COVID, they went together. So now it's more difficult. Before COVID, they had for each diagnosis. Now it's a big group. But I'm a member in that group, so I can post only a message like we do in LinkedIn, for instance.
Okay, so you got your 5 patients.
And then
After
we have
a
to
lot of
meet
time.
them, because when they asking me to find the 5 persons, the questionnaire may not be ready. So then I have to wait for the questionnaire, translated questionnaire into Swedish. And I try to have contact with the participants now, not losing them, because we can wait the 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks. Nothing comes because they are not working. I have 2 weeks to find the people and doing the interviews, but they can spend months in getting ready or whatever they do with all this. So it's a little bit tricky, that part. Some companies are more organized and getting the demand, and in 3 weeks I'm finished and I'm getting paid.
And then you charge that by hour. I mean, if you contact 20 to 100
I make up
people
before.
Sorry?
This I make up before. I'm getting the request, the service request, and they give me offer. And then I can see on the diagnosis if it will be easy to find these people, or also how many questions are there. Is it only 5 or is it 20? Sometimes it can be 20 even. So how much time will I spend finding the people, interviewing, and setting up the grid? Finally, it's a grid to fill.
Yeah.
And Arletta, you were going to say how you do the process.
Okay. So we already have our people, our patients. They are vetted. They tick all the boxes that are necessary. They have ailments that we are looking for. And now another tricky part, because we need to explain what it is about, that we don't need them to reply to questionnaire. It's not about to check whether they have this or that, but rather how they understand sentence by sentence, item by item, how they what they understand when they read it, and we try to explain that what we are looking for is the we need them to rephrase in their own words what they understand and how they understand this item. And that's the I guess the most important part. And then we are able to check and put in the report whether the phrasing match with the concept elaboration, where the patient understands items, the questionnaire, exactly the closest as possible to the concept and to what developers are looking for, more or less.
Yeah.
I guess I got it. I hope.
Yeah, I can imagine how that is. And do you see those patients in real, or do you have like a conference like this, or on the phone, or how do you usually do that?
I guess nowadays it's more often online than in person. That's more the easiest way. It's not the probably the perfect one, because when you are online, you lose this micro cue. You are not able to attune to the person and to observe how they react, because it is also important to look at the person that goes through the questionnaire and just look for tiny cue, whether they stop at some point, whether they need to think a bit longer because of phrasing, or because of the way how it is presented. Block letters, italics, all that different elements that are truly important. How respondents, how patients interact with the questionnaire.
Yeah. And you both said 5 people. Is it always 5, or is that just a random number?
I guess the 5 is the standard, but it can differ.
I mean, 5 is not a lot, is it? If you
No.
want to have different ages, if you want to have different gender.
Well, it's not a lot, but in terms of what this is qualitative research, we're looking at the quality of responses. So we're not looking at, we're not really looking at generalizability, because you could, I could do 5 interviews now, right here now, and Noor could do 5 in the next room, and we could compare responses, and there could be quite very different quality, depth of understanding, and things like that. So, but there are, for example, EORTC, which is a cancer, which deal with oncology scales and instruments. They typically go for 10. It's always 10 for them. But 5 is a standard. Readability testing, it will be 20. Bizarre. It just shouldn't be. It should just be iterations of 5. But I think 5 is a decent number, really. Just get insights to what, and that's all it is. It's just insights into how understandable it is.
Yeah.
Some things I wanted to add is that we always have like a demographic, and we need to have a mix of age and gender and education level. No, so like that we try to spread the, let's say, the way the different patients may understand that depending on their specifics. And also we ask patients to fill in the questionnaire as if they were in the real setting. With if it's a paper version, they need to have the physical paper with them, the sheets. If it's electronic, they see it on the screen. But we don't need, as Arletta greatly said, we don't need their specific answers.
Yeah, I get that.
We need them to answer, and we evaluate that also, and they give us feedback on how they understood in general, and if they had anything that may have offended them or anything that they may want to add. In terms of visuals as well, if possible, because all these factors are paramount. And then it's when we go into all that nuance, and they have to paraphrase, and we have to put that into a report, all their verbatim paraphrasing, but ask structured questions, and we tend to ask what this phrase means to you, or how you understand this, and then if they have issues understanding, we ask them to well, we explain to them what it means, because if they haven't understood something, well, we need them to help us reword that in a way that they would have understood it in the first place, because that's where we have an issue. And that's where they provide their feedback. Sometimes only if the patients have an issue, we ask them to provide feedback according to some companies, but in truth, I think we should ask patients always if they have anything that they suggest. Because even though, they have understood, but there may have other ways of saying it that may readability or maybe more culturally appropriate. But since they understood, they said, no problem. But then, and
that's
then,
what I got the feeling.
Yeah, and then we have those structured questions, but then we have we can probe, and because sometimes patients have difficulties paraphrasing, or they tend to answer to you the question with a response choice, and you're no, I just need you to think aloud and tell me with your own words. And you need probing in it to say, hey, well, can you give me an example, or how did you feel about this? And be very careful not to be prompting, not to be putting in the mind of the patient the answers that we want, let's say. And that's a skill that it's not easy to grasp, because you are prompting all the time and you're not even aware of it.
But there's also a difference between probing and prompting. Is that what you just said?
At least that's what I understood. He was asleep, like, oh.
I was thinking about work stuff. Sorry.
Allow me one more question, or actually two. I guess they see the questionnaire for the very first time when you ask them about it. So they can't prepare exactly what you said. Are they reading it a little slower? How do they react?
The ideal thing, at least for me, is to give them, I mean, if it's a paper version, they need to receive it or print it before the call, obviously. But at least I ask them always not to look at it. Don't look at it until I call you. And then during the call, I ask them to, because if it's, as Arletta said, we have most of the time now video conference with the patients, so we can see them closest, because otherwise we have phone call only and we miss the face of the person and so many reactions. They cannot see us either. So we have to build trust, and if they see our faces, it's easier for them. In person would be ideal, but also that creates a lot of issues, in the sense that sometimes you only have a population within the town that you're in, and maybe some dialectal nuances are lost because you are not the population more spread. But with these video calls, let's say, we can see them how they are feeling in the questionnaire. And one thing I've noticed is when I ask them to read aloud to me the questions while they are answering, I can see sometimes that they are reading them, changing words, and or interpreting other thing differently, because they are just reading it differently, and it doesn't say that. And I'm like, can you read it again? And they read it again. Oh, it didn't say this. It said so. It's curious, and in that reading, they tell you part of their thinking process while they're answering to the question, and that gives. It's true that it's an addition, but it gives like a lot of information. And sometimes while they are trying to answer to the question, they're providing their experience as patients, and they give examples in a let's say in a natural way. And then we move on to the next task of paraphrasing, but the paraphrasing is so taxing cognitively that sometimes we miss many nuances that they just couldn't say while they were going through all the questions aloud and trying to answer. And so And I lost the track of why I was saying this.
It sounds a bit like you have to have like really good psychological knowledge as well.
Yes.
To read between the lines, to like really be sympathetic.
Yeah.
You can't be a surgeon, for example.
And you
They are
have
the
to
worst.
express themselves
Yeah.
and tell them their story. Not allowing the interview to go, 3 hours, but they need to provide that, because that's really precious. And it tells you if they are really grasping the questions, if they're really understanding and the value of them answering to this questionnaire.
Yeah, I guess that must be really, really interesting. I hope I get the chance to do that once. You guys have a new meeting in 2 minutes. I will release you now. Thank you so much for all the answers. Like all of you, everybody who dared to speak today. Thank you, Angelo. Thank you for listening and also sharing again. It's much appreciated. We keep in contact. I'm happy we had such a nice call, and wish you all a really nice night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.